This is Lois DeWitt. I'm going to give you a glimpse of some of the methods I use in my own painting today. I've been working on a series of oil paintings, and I am starting a new series of oil paintings, and I think what they're going to be is 5 or 6 different paintings put together so they can either be hung together or not. They can work separately or together. But what I have in mind is a composite of different oil paintings. So that means that they sort of have to relate in a certain way, but not relate to the point where they make actually one whole painting logically. So that said, now I'm going to show you how I'm developing this process. First of all, I'm going to show you the painting that I just completed. And it's laying flat because it is still drying on the edges. But this is the painting that I'm going to try to relate to in my next painting. So this is my next painting. I'll kind of give you a play-by-play account of how this develops. You can see that the drawing that I've done on the canvas relates pretty much to my last painting. It's got my dog in there in profile, and some of the plant forms that I used in the other painting as well. So if they are hung together, it will be sort of like another scenario of the same subject matter. And speaking of subject matter, a lot of the images that I'm using are taken from photos. In this case, there are a couple photos here that in this one, this is the one I used for my first painting, and I actually cut out this picture and superimposed it on this photo so that I would get the composition that I wanted. Then when I started to do this painting, you could see that actually there were quite a few changes that took place just because I got inspired to do it a bit different. So you can see that I'm using these photos as a reference, but then I sort of leave a lot of the imagery because as I'm painting it, get inspired to do other things. So this is the one that I'm going to be working with now. And again, this is a photo that's been superimposed on a photo to give me some of the composition that I want. So you can see in the painting that I'm going to start developing now that I have drawn the dog profile in, and then some of the plant forms over here from that photo, and then I have introduced a whole new different form. I'm not working from a photo on this, I'm just working from imagination on these palm forms. But I did also like the vertical that is in here, so I put that in the painting as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is start putting in the background, and it's going to be a color, sort of an orange color, similar to the one on the other painting, but not quite. And I think as I'm starting out with this orange color, what I'm going to do is grade it out very, very gradually to maybe a kind of a violet color. And then I think I'm going to do a violet color on this side over here. To do the gradation here, make it darker and darker over here, I've got one color here, this orange for this area, and then I've mixed up a really nice violet, which I'm going to start introducing. To blend these colors together, I've introduced some violet into that orange, and I'm taking the paint off the brush. I have some violet here and some orange here, and I'm just going to integrate those two colors together very smoothly and seamlessly. Short strokes with the tip of my brush, and I'm removing some of the paint periodically as I'm working in the light area. And I'm bringing in the darker color. But by removing some of the dark color as it gets darker off my brush, I can bring it into the lighter color. What I'm going to do with this, I've gotten into the darker area here, is I'm going to take some, this just makes it easier to make a straight line. I'm going to take some masking tape just put it there where the line is. So it's a nice straight line. And now I can just bring it right out to where I want that wall to be. So there's the dark color there. And then I'm going to take my other brush, the one I was using for the lighter, and then I will just continue my gradation. But the paint is really wet and it will stay wet for quite a while. And what I might do is let it dry for an hour or two. It won't be dry, but it'll be drier, and I can even blend the colors better. Just go over it once more with a soft brush to get that seamless gradation that I want. Okay, I've pretty much finished the gradation. This happens a lot with me if I'm doing something like this. I pick up on certain shapes that come into play, and in this case I came up with some kind of shadowy plant-like shapes. They just sort of appeared, and I think they're going to make the painting interesting. So now I'm ready to go on to some of the leaf shapes. And okay, so I've started on some of the background, and I've done these spaces in here, and this purple represents the background, and then I'm going into in between the leaves with a different color. It's going to be a dark green to make the shading for in between all of the leaves. And that's going to be all these little spaces in between the leaves. And I tell myself in situations like this where I'm using a little bit of paint and in little tiny areas, I really have to paint big because I want to make sure I have enough paint down so that the color is there. And also this canvas is fairly textured, so I want to make sure that I get all the little sparkles out from, if I don't fill the canvas with the pigment, there will be these little white spots, and they take away from all of the color interaction. I have completed all of the plant shading in dark green, and the next thing that I'm going to do is just paint in the background here, which I think is going to be yellow. This is going to be like a wall, and this is going to be a kind of a shock of light coming through, and then the leaves will be superimposed. I finished the yellow here, and I think that color is going to work just fine. The shading here is sort of a teal blue, and I think that that's going to work for the background of the foliage down here. Now I'm starting to paint in the leaves. They're a brighter green. I think I'm going to add, I've already actually added some shadows on the leaves, and then I think I'm also going to add some highlights. When I get the leaves completed, I will go back and see if I need a brighter color on those. See that I'm making some headway here on these leaves, having a lot of fun doing this. And basically what I do is I sort of paint in the green first, and then I put in the darker green for the shadows. And now you can see where these areas of white are. That's where the highlight is. And then I'm going to just blend that highlight in so the leaves are softly illuminated. I think I have put my final highlights on the leaves and just graded them in the make a really soft light that is shining on these leaves. So now I'm starting over here. I'm going to do these palm frond shapes that are going into the yellow. I was going to do the dog next, but I think I'm going to see how these colors interact, do this side, and then maybe do my Poodle dog afterwards. In cases like this, the paint is still wet, so I have to do this very carefully, and I'm diluting my paint a little bit with turpentine and using a very small brush so that I can get these shapes. Leaf shapes in, the palm frond shapes, and that came out really well. I'll probably have to go back into the yellow and just make the lines a little more solid, but I'm going to wait for the paint to dry, so that might be a couple days. And then the next step, I think, is to do this dog. See that I've started to do the illumination on the dog here. I have a photo that I'm using for reference, and you can see that the lighting is there as well, and and then I'm going to bring in darker colors for shading and probably do 2 or 3 colors like I did on the leaf. You can see I'm making headway on the lighter blue and the darker blue. I've made these 2 areas of color that I'm going to blend together, putting them down first. I'm really liking the way this lighter blue kind of lifts. It's a background, but it lifts the leaf shapes out. And I'm going to use this lighter blue in here in these white areas, and then I'm going to blend those 3 colors together. Here is, I have finally gotten all of my gradations in, and I'm ready to blend them. You can see that the white canvas can really steer you in a different direction because it's such a detour. So I always, when I get to this stage, all of a sudden the painting starts coming together because the colors are meeting each other and the edges are there finally. An idea of the blending technique. This really has to be done with the paint being wet. It can't happen when the paint is dry, and I'm having to keep on removing the paint from the brush periodically so I can integrate the colors. This brush doesn't really have any paint on it at all. Just on the very tip, the paint that I'm moving. You can see that the gradation is done on the dog shape, and it came out really well. And so now I'm beginning the this leaf shape right here, this palm frond shape, and that will take all of the white out, so then I can really see how the colors are operating. I've chosen a kind of a red purple that I think will kind of bring the foreground out, but not so much that you can't get into it to the other shapes. So I finished the shape in front, the palm fronds, and I'm really liking the color interactions a lot. Although, spatially to me, it sits, it's a little bit of, it's confusing, I think. It's very graphic, but I'm thinking that maybe these shapes are silhouetted here, but this is not really silhouetted. So I'm thinking that I may have to go into it with some gradations to give it some light and shadow. I actually decided to do some gradations on this to set it more into the foreground, and I think that helped a whole lot. And then I also decided to put more yellow up here to answer that kind of overall glow. So I think that I have the illumination I want. I thought maybe this would give you an idea of some of the brush work that I have been dealing with. and encourage you to try this technique. I really like painting this way. Love the color that I'm using. And with oils you can get all these wonderful gradations. So that's my painting.